Guys, we have a big weekend of Championship football on its way. Let's jump into it. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. I am very interested to see which way you guys are going to be going with some of these score predictions. So as always, make sure to get them in the comments down below and get yourself entered onto the prediction leaderboard. As well as that, make sure to go ahead and leave a like if you do go on to enjoy today's video. Speaking of the prediction leaderboard, as you can see to the side of me, I have managed to maintain my spot in the #1 place at the moment, but I do have Johnny Burrow, who is breathing down my neck at the moment. He had a very good week, picking up 9 points. He has made a bit of ground up on me as well, as I picked up just the 7 this time around. Into League One, it's a 3-horse race at the top at the moment between Aiden FC, Ant Shipman and Kellum C, all on 105 points at the moment, so very close in there. And in League 2, it's Canary Ketchup and Harry Friedman currently leading the way with 98 points. Still very tight between the top and bottom of League 2, and loads of you are just a few points away from going ahead and breaking into that League 2 league, so make sure to go ahead and carry on getting your score predictions in there. But without any further ado, guys, let's jump into these predictions. So we'll start out with the Saturday early kickoff. We've got Cardiff going up against Middlesbrough. Now, no offence to Cardiff or Middlesbrough, but why Sky chose this as the feature game of the weekend, I'm not all too sure. I can't say that from a neutral's perspective. I'm banking on this one being an absolute classic with Warnock going up against McCarthy. But speaking of Mick McCarthy, he is under real pressure at the moment, and that loss in midweek to Fulham only went ahead and magnified that. 7 defeats on the bounce now for Cardiff. They're conceding a hell of a lot of goals, and they're not really showing all too much in the final third either. They're going up against this Middlesbrough side who has had a bit more about them lately, albeit I do think that the fixture list has been fairly kind to Middlesbrough, and that's probably continuing into this one with the game against an out-of-form Cardiff side, followed up with a game against the Birmingham side who's also quite out of form at the moment. But fair play 2-0 Warnock, because there has been a little bit of a changing of the tide. Obviously another win for them in midweek with Sparrow on the score sheet in that one once again. I can see this one being quite a low scoring tight affair, but I think it's got to be Middlesbrough that I'm banking on for this one. So I'm going to go 1-0 Middlesbrough in this game, maybe for a set piece or something like that to win it. And FIFA has also gone ahead and agree with me. If it is 8 defeats in a row for McCarthy at Cardiff, I'm not sure I can see a way back from there. Next up then, we head to St Andrews, where we have Birmingham going up against Swansea. Now, Birmingham's real issue at this point in time is finding the back of the net. Obviously, it was a point for them in midweek, but albeit not in the greatest of circumstances, the overall performance didn't look exactly flawless from Birmingham in that one. And if anything, it looked like Huddersfield perhaps had the better chances to go on and win that one. And another game where they have failed to hit the back of the net. They're going up against this Swansea side who had a similar issue near the start of the season, but they've really come into form lately, scoring 5 goals in their last 2 matches. Brilliant win in midweek over West Brom, and what I liked about Swansea in that game was it was seemingly quite a sort of adaptable performance from them. I think they played more long balls in that game against West Brom than they have in any of their other matches so far this season. Obviously, that first goal for Joel Perreault came from that long ball, and then Jamie Patterson, obviously, with the form he's in at the moment, stuck his goal away. I think that most people will probably have this one as a Swansea win, and I think I'd probably tend to agree with how they're going at the moment. So, score prediction time, I'm going to go 2-0 Swansea in that game, with FIFA saying 1-1. Next up then, we head to Ewood Park, where we have Blackburn going up against Reading. Both sides will be looking to bounce back from defeats in midweek. Blackburn obviously lost to QPR 1-0, and Reading were on the receiving end of a Blackpool comeback, 2-0 up at half-time, only to go ahead and throw it away and ultimately lose 3-2. I do think that Reading have maybe got a little bit fortunate in some of those matches that they won on that great run of form that they've recently went on. I think that in terms of chances conceded so far this season, Reading are right up there. I think that Southwood has had a large part to play actually in why they picked up so many points recently and keeping them in some of the matches when the opposition have created chances against them. Blackburn in general also tend to be stronger at home in terms of chance creation. Obviously, Ben Brereton's now back in the squad as well after that Chile call-up on international duty. And for a score prediction in this one, I think it is Blackburn with that home advantage, who I am just swaying towards in this one. I'm going to go 2-1 Rovers in this game, with FIFA going 1-0 Blackburn. But Reading are a bit of an odd side this season, who are more than capable of pulling something off in this one, but I'll just go for Blackburn, I think. Next up then, we head to Bloomfield Road, and this is the big game of the weekend. It's Blackpool up against Preston. It's a big local derby that hasn't taken place in the Championship for over 10 years. The last time this game was played in the Championship. I was 10 years old. I'm now 21 going on 22, so that just goes to show how long it has actually been since these two clubs have met. Now, in terms of the form book, it's quite an interesting time in the season that both teams are playing each other. Both teams got good wins in midweek, both coming from behind. Obviously, Preston had a really poor first half display against Coventry, but turned it around in the second half. Blackpool with a fantastic second half display against Reading to pick up all 3 points in that one. Jerry Yates very much seems to be the form man for Blackpool at the moment, but I'm a bit concerned about some of their wide men coming into this game. I think that the sort of players that Preston have struggled to contain so far this season are players like Keane Lewis-Potter, Ovia Jaria, Kellum O'Hare in the first half against Coventry, Chair against QPR. Those sort of diminutive players who are good at carrying the ball from those wide positions into central areas in the final third. I think we generally struggle to sort of screen that space in between our midfield and defence. And if some of those Blackpool wingers can get the better of us in this game, that's a real area where I think they'll pose us some threats. In terms of North End, I'd like to see us be brave going into this game. I don't want us to be a little bit passive like we have been in probably the majority of our away performances so far this season. Actually, you know, we're yet to win on the road so far this season. I'd like to see Josh Hill push right up the pitch as a wing back and give Blackpool's wide men something to think about. Make sure they're tracking back and making sure that we are sort of trying to assert our dominance onto this game. When you've got people in your squad like Emile Reese and Daniel Johnson, they're more than capable of coming up with a match winner. But in a local derby like this, the atmosphere will be absolutely booming. You just never really know, do you? Obviously, Blackpool still have a couple of injuries to contend with as well, but their squad is still looking strong regardless. For a score prediction in this one, my mind says so many different things. I'm going to say a 1-1 draw, though. I think that's fair for where we are at the moment. I'm going to say 1-1. FIFA, on the other hand, is going 2-0 Blackpool. Really interested to see which way you guys are predicting that one. Next, then we head to Bournemouth up against Huddersfield. Bournemouth will be looking to extend their lead at the top of the Championship, and fair play to them because they've come through two quite potentially tricky away matches in their last two with 6 points. You know, they got that win over Bristol City in quite comfortable fashion in the end, and they got through that game against Stoke with a 1-0 win. I don't think that ultimately sides will probably go to that Stoke team this season and leave with 3 points. So yeah, it's a real credit to Scott Parker and the work he's done at Bournemouth at the moment, the sort of flexibility that they've shown in those sort of matches. If you watched the last episode of the Championship Roundup, we highlighted Ryan Christie as a real star performer for them in recent weeks. I thought he looked quite good for them in midweek once again. But I mean, this will be an interesting game because Huddersfield themselves have shown their threats and been a bit of an underdog in most of the matches they've gone into so far this season, particularly from set piece situations. Huddersfield have been good. They've scored more set pieces than any other side so far this season. However, I think the safe bet for this one probably does have to be on Bournemouth. With the way they're currently playing, back at home now after a couple of tough away matches, I'm going to go for a 2-1 Bournemouth home victory, with FIFA going 1-0 Huddersfield. Next then we go to Coventry up against Derby. Obviously, I was at the Preston Coventry game in midweek, and a performance which was fairly similar to the Blackburn away performance, but sort of flipped on its head this time. Coventry looked really good in that first half and were causing us all sorts of problems. Kellum O'Hare especially, I thought, looked like a real live wire for sort of picking up the ball in those little pockets of space and trying to make things happen. But in the second half, there just seemed to be such a, I don't know if it was like just an energy dump where their levels seemed to just crash to all-time lows, and obviously Preston then managed to take advantage and end up with the 3 points in the end. They are back at home for this one though, which has been a real factor for Coventry so far this season, and they still have that flawless record. Now they're going up against this Derby side who, I've got to be honest, have really impressed me in recent weeks, and I'd even go as far to say that they've maybe been a little bit unfortunate not to have won their last two matches. You know, against Preston, I certainly think they should have won that game, and against Luton, they ended up taking the lead twice in that game, ultimately to draw at 2-2. Had they won both those matches, which I think is pretty realistic by the way they played, then they would have been off the bottom of the Championship. So Derby are still a very competitive team in this league, and they're certainly not taking this point deduction lying down at the moment. However, Coventry just seem to be a bit of a different kettle of fish at home compared to away, don't they? And you feel like maybe Derby will sense it's been a bit of a missed opportunity in those last couple of matches. I do think that this will be a good game of football though. Both teams will look to build out from the back, and I'm interested to see if Derby persists with sort of like Tom Lawrence as that false nine. Looked quite good in midweek. But for a score prediction, I think I'm just going to edge Coventry with their great home record. I'm going to go 2-1 Coventry, with FIFA going 1-0 Coventry. Derby more than capable of getting something from that game though, with the way they're currently playing. Next then we head to Luton up against Hull City. For Luton, it does feel like they are building up a little bit of consistency now. You know, at the start of the season they seem to be a little bit all or nothing with their performances, but unbeaten in their last 4, they've come off the back of 2 potentially quite tricky away matches with 4 points, with that win over Middlesbrough and that draw over with Derby in midweek, obviously 2-2 in that one. Came back from behind twice in that game. It does feel like a bit of a partnership is starting to form between Adebayo and Cornick going forward, both of them getting on the score sheet lately, and they're going up against this Hull side who I feel like was a massive opportunity missed in midweek, going up against Peterborough at home, considering their away record, considering the penalty miss as well from Josh McGuinness. I feel like that one will be a real sinker in terms of confidence especially, and with Luton seeming to build up a bit of consistency with their play at the moment, I think it's the home side that I've got to be edging towards for this one. For a score prediction, I'm going to go 2-0 Luton, I think, with FIFA going 1-0 Luton. Next up we then head to the den where we've got Millwall going up against Stoke in the Gary Rowett derby, one that's always eagerly anticipated by many at the start of the season, I'm sure. But to be fair to Millwall, they have picked up quite a bit in their form recently. Obviously the stereotype with Millwall is that they draw a lot of matches, but no draws in the last 4, 3 wins in that time, and another win for them in midweek, and a big one at that over Sheffield United obviously. Jed Wallace with that swinging first goal, and then Cooper with that one late on, just absolutely hammering it in with his left foot from outside the box. Stoke will be looking to bounce back from a couple of defeats. To be fair to Stoke, their fixtures have been pretty tough on them lately, with those games against Sheffield United and then Bournemouth. Obviously there's no disgrace in losing those matches, and by quite fine margins in the end, obviously both those by a 1-goal deficit in the end. We always seem to get at least one goalless draw every weekend, don't we? And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see this maybe being that one this weekend. I think I am going to go for a 0-0er in this one, you know, with FIFA going 1-0 Stoke. Next then we head to Peterborough up against QPR. This one should be quite a good game actually. We have seen Darren Ferguson set up Peterborough in a more sort of defensive unit than we perhaps expected to in a couple of their matches so far this season, and that's not always paid off for them. But what I would say is I think that this game is suited to both teams just going for it, and that could lead to really quite an exciting game of football, you know. Peterborough, if they come into it with that mentality, QPR approach most games like that, to be honest with you, and I do think we could potentially get quite a few goals scored in this one. It was a massive win for Peterborough in midweek. Sariki Dembele scoring the winner in that game, who has been probably their best player so far this season, certainly in that sort of final third in terms of making things happen for them. A win for QPR as well, but it was quite important that they got back to winning ways after the manner of which they lost that game against Fulham. They had a hell of a lot of attacking players on the pitch come the full-time whistle against Blackburn, but eventually that goal did come and their persistence paid off with Sheff scoring that excellent goal. I do see this one being quite a lively one, and I think I'm just going to edge towards maybe QPR with that bit more quality in the middle, although they have shown so far this season that they can be opened up, particularly if Peterborough are on song for this one in the final third. But I think I'm just going to edge QPR for a 2-1 away victory, but it should be an entertaining matchup, that one. FIFA's going 1-0 QPR. Next up then we head to the Hawthorns, where we have West Brom going up against Bristol City. Now I'm fully convinced by this point that the Ashton Gate curse is real for Bristol City, because it was another defeat for them in midweek at home, and in really quite dramatic circumstances. They led for the majority of that game, having got the goal in the first half, only to go ahead and concede 2 stoppage time goals to Lyle Taylor to ultimately lose that one 2-1. So they'll be thankful to be on the road again, where they've been so successful so far this season and where the majority of their points have actually gone ahead and come from. And they are playing a West Brom side who has been having a bit of a slide in the league recently. 2 defeats in their last 3 matches, and like we saw with Swansea, there is definitely a way to set up and approach games against this West Brom side. You know that they're going to come at you in midfield with loads of intensity, and you know they're going to play that back line really quite high up the pitch. So if you can, you know, get those balls dropping in behind that back line, and you have those willing runners who are willing to get in behind. This was something that Swansea seems to do quite successfully, particularly with that first goal that Joel Perreault scored. Then you can get a little bit of joy out of West Brom. The only flip side of that is they do have serious quality in the final third, and someone like a Colin Grant, like he has been doing recently, is good enough to just pop up with that one moment of quality and win the match on his own, like he did against Birmingham. Bristol City though have been effective on the road, particularly as that counter-attacking side, and I think that that's where West Brom from had become a little bit undone so far this season. You know, thinking about that game that Bristol City had away at QPR, if they set up in this one in a similar manner, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see them getting something from this one. So for a score prediction, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. You know, I am going to back Bristol City to get something from this game, with FIFA going 2-0 West Brom. Next up then, and into Sunday's matches, we have Barnsley going up against Sheffield United. This game for Barnsley not exactly coming at the ideal time in their season. I sound like a bit of a broken record whenever I'm talking about Barnsley at the moment, but another defeat for them in midweek. That's now 5 on the bounce for them, and the writing seems like it's on the wall now for Marcus Sharp. I mean, mathematically and off the eye test, Barnsley have been the worst side in the league so far this season. You know, would it not be for that Derby point deduction, Barnsley would currently be sitting bottom, currently still the only Championship club with 1 win on the board as well. And it's not really as if there's been many glimmers of hope with some of the performances. It's not like I can see them particularly building towards a process under Sharp at the moment. Now, Sheffield United have had issues of their own so far this season, but none to the extent that Barnsley are currently facing. Obviously, it was a defeat, quite disappointingly so, for Sheff United in midweek, particularly with some of the chances that they had. You know, David McGoldrick just didn't seem to have his shooting boots on, but then that Morgan Gibbs-White's second yellow card didn't help proceedings, and then Millwall obviously went on to win that game late on. I do fancy Sheff United to bounce back in this one, and unless we see another sort of like Bradley Collins masterclass and maybe Woodrow conjuring up something in the final third, I'm going to go 2-0 Sheff United in this game, with FIFA going for a goalless draw. And there's our last game to go over. We are heading to the City Ground, where we have Nottingham Forest going up against Fulham. It was another fantastic win for Forest in midweek, continuing the revival under Steve Cooper, and as good as it has been, I think it would be fair to say that this game against Fulham will be the toughest test that Cooper has faced in the Forest job so far. But yeah, what a win in midweek in the circumstances, with those 2 late Lyle Taylor goals in that one. Going up against this Fulham side, who looked good in midweek, fairly comfortable in the end actually, against Cardiff with that 2-0 win. Mitrovic getting on the score sheet, and also Tom Kearney back involved in the action and back on the score sheet, just like he'd never been away. He will be probably a massive player coming back into this squad now. Obviously been integral to their recent promotions from the Championship, and on his day, undoubtedly probably one of the best players, if not the best player, in the league at this level over the last few years. So yeah, this will be an interesting game. Fulham have had a few cracks in their recent few away performances. They dropped points in that Coventry one earlier on in the season. They obviously dropped points against Blackpool. They also had that game against Bristol City where they dropped points in that 1-1 draw as well. So I do think there may be something in this one for Forest, but obviously Fulham have those players who can turn up on the day. For a prediction for this one, I'm going to go for a draw, you know. I'm going to fancy Forest to continue their unbeaten run under Cooper. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. FIFA's going 1-0 Fulham. But guys, there we have it. Those are my Championship score predictions for what I see happening in this weekend's fixtures. As always, make sure to get involved in the comments down below. Do let me know how you see your team getting on this week, and for all the other matches as well. Make sure to get involved with the prediction league, and if you did go on to enjoy it, make sure to leave a like and stick around for some regular Championship content. Thanks for watching though, guys. I'll see you all in the next one.